Amazing.
That is football.
Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you a Week 2 NFL preview between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New York Giants. Let's start with the Bucs offense in this ball game, and the one statistic that stood out to me the most: 37 minutes time of possession. That's buck ball, that's grinding it out, that's minimizing your opponent's possessions and also giving your defense the adequate rest they need to stay aggressive. So I like what they did offensively, and I look for them to do that again versus the Giants by running downhill, use their greatest strength as their biggest weakness, run right at the pressure, neutralize this game, shrink this ball game for your offense. Also, I look at the fact that the receivers have to be able to beat bump press. The Giants will get up in the face of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers and challenge them to get off bump press. So those wide receivers like Mike Williams, Vincent Jackson, Aurelius Ben, Strouder and company, those guys have to get off bump press this week versus the Giants. And I look at the fact that the slot receivers, Parker and Ben, they're going to be vital this week. They're going to be able to have some success running those underneath routes. They have to take advantage. Now, defensively, you look at the fact that the encore performance is needed from that interior defensive line. I tell you right now, the Bucs were hitting out there last week. It was a very physical ball game. Interior defensive line play was excellent. They didn't allow the Panthers to gain control of the line of scrimmage. And the linebackers must communicate with each other versus the underneath passing game. The Giants run a lot of over routes, a lot of crossing routes, a lot of break-in routes. So the linebackers have to communicate as guys pass through their zone to other linebackers so that we could combat it. And the defensive ends must squeeze down and protect themselves versus the cutback versus the outside run. Now, the X factor in this ball game, the Bucs offensive line has to come back and play an encore performance. Now, you look at the Giants in this game. First thing, I understand the point that Tom Coughlin was making with David Wilson benching him after the fumble. But you got to play the playmakers. You got to put Wilson out there on the field. You got to put Ruben Randall out there on the field. You got to put these guys that you drafted in the first and second round, respectively, out there on the field so that way you can have some success. They give you the best chance to win because they are explosive playmakers. Put the young guys on the field, but I understand the point. And they also have to get physical at the point of attack. The offensive line was a little bit too passive last week versus Dallas. Got to get physical, get nasty. And I also look at the fact that they have to control the pace of the game. I think the Giants can do that with their short passing game, mixing a little bit of the run here. They have to control the pace. Now, defensively, the linebackers filling these gaps versus the running game is going to be vital. You look at guys like Rivers, Goff, those guys, they have to come in, not Goff, Bowling, I'm sorry, they're going to have to come in and fill those gaps versus the running game of Tampa Bay. And the DBs, they actually match up well versus the Bucs wide receivers speed-wise, whether it be safeties or corners. The Bucs receivers aren't burners, and neither are the Giants secondary. So they match up well. They can get physical with those guys, and it throws off the timing of the passing game. And you want to win early on down the distance because that plays into your advantage, getting those pass rushers out there on the field. X factor in this ball game for the Giants, the tight ends in the running game, Pasco and also Bennett, they're going to have to hold the edge and seal the edge so that way runners like Wilson and Bradshaw can get to the outside. Let's look at some positional breakdowns. I think they're even at the QB position. Both guys have solid young talent there, Eli and also Freeman. Tampa has the advantage at the running back position with Blunt and also the rookie Doug Martin. I think they're even at receiver. Both have adequate receiving cores. I really am a big fan of both of these guys' receiving cores. Tight end advantage goes to Tampa Bay. They have Dallas Clark. They also have Stocker and company. I also look at the offensive line. I think the Bucs have the better offensive line. D-line clearly goes to the Giants. Linebackers, I think they're even. Young linebacking core for Tampa. Keep an eye on those guys. Defensive backs, I'm a big fan of their secondary back there in Tampa now that Rondé Barber has moved to safety and they finally use Ahmad Black. So I look at this game as a whole. Big matchup right here. Both teams can have an excuse saying they played two divisional opponents, so they know those guys well and each one knows their tendencies. This is a huge game for both teams trying to get off to a start to go this way instead of that way. I like Tampa in this ballgame. I think their defense showed something last week. Their secondary, it was what was I most impressive with. I'm finally glad they put Ahmad Black out there. They have their own version of the big nickel they could use versus the Giants wide receivers. I like the Bucs to win a very good ball game out here in the Meadowlands.